So Bob Webb has been working away on this stuff for literal, now years.
Many.
Many years. He's honed his sound skills over many years. But then, among other things, it turns out that a fellow by the name of Wick Trout did a bunch of recording in Darlene in the 50s, maybe? 50s and 60s?
Probably.
50s and 60s. And some of them were on wire recorders. Okay? So Bob had to figure all that out and find a wire recorder and repair it and do all this stuff. Anyway, so a couple weeks ago he called and said, "Rich, I'm ready." So here's
Rich,
the guy.
actually,
Here's the
Rich-
guy that plays backup for Heidi.
Yeah. She's the person that keeps me together, let's put it that way.
Okay.
I'm going to give you credit because you called me up and said the Oregon Historical Society had a machine that they didn't know what it was. You remember that?
Yeah.
And so I drove over there to a warehouse, and the fellow was totally at a loss. He didn't know what it was. It was a Webster Chicago wire recorder from about 1946, which turns out to be the very same model that Wick Trout used. It wasn't the same machine. I used to fantasize maybe that it was the same machine. They are heavy, around 45 pounds. And somebody had stripped out all of the internal electronics from it. It worked mechanically, but you couldn't get any sound out of it. So a friend and I figured out how to wire into the playback head directly. So what you're going to hear today is our recordings that I've done.
Okay.
Rich, thank you for that.
Well, I'll have that.
Okay. I think it's time to pass out. Of course you will. Thank you. So, you know, musicians are supposed to be able to jam, right? Well, this is sort of a jam. Dr. Seavey and Kathy are here, and I had the privilege of getting to meet your father, and who is, how old is he now?
He's going to be 101 next month.
101 next month. He was a veteran from World War II, and his great-grandson, Parker, had an interest. So I sat him down on my couch in the studio and turned on the recording, and Parker had done his research, and it was all about your father's experience, pretty much the Battle of the Bulge, and his whole war experience. So that's a valuable voice from the past, which is sort of what I'm here today to encourage you to, number one, appreciate that, well, let's see, they don't really have Edison's voice from 1877 when he recited Mary Had a Little Lamb. Okay, it was on essentially a piece of tin foil. And once you played it back, it was gone. But in 1927, he recreated the same thing. I would have brought it today, but that's okay. We know he made the recording. So there have been two threads in the recording industry from the very beginning. And I'll touch on these a little bit, but not too much. If you have any questions, basically the first thread is similar to what you hear when you hear a cricket. Okay? They have a little thing like a needle, it's a leg, and they scrape it against part of their wing, I think, and or part of their body, and there's a sound chamber, miniature, and so you hear a cricket making a sound. And that's the way the very first recordings were made, in a mechanical fashion, and were literally cut into a piece of wax, and or in the case of Edison, into a thin piece of aluminum foil or tin foil. And then let me get organized here. that was in a cylinder. Heidi, if you could pass this around. Now, these are fragile. If I dropped it,
It's just,
we'd be
is
in
it
trouble.
one?
It's one, yeah.
Well,
I believe that's a kind of plastic called Bakelite, and it has some kind of a lacquer surface. And there's a mold that molds the signals. You can pass them back. I think, did I see Steve back there somewhere? Yeah. I got a whole bunch of 78s that I'm gonna have fun going through. This is one of them.
But before the mold, they were inscribed by a recording machine where the needle bounced up and down.
Exactly, Rich is right. Didn't want to dive too deep into the weeds here. Oh, really? Okay, what he's talking about is a lathe, and it's a steel needle that could respond to the vibration and literally cut. As it cut the groove, it would also cut in.
Hey, Bob.
Yep.
Just before you get too much further, just make a mention of the wax recording cylinders, which we have at home. That they inscribed a wax that you could only play it a few times.
Right, yeah, the original, it was a solid cylinder of wax, and you could, they eventually developed a way to mass produce. They would make the first one, and then it would be made out of a hard material, and then from that they would make a mold, and then mold. But they were still only good for, 10, 15, 20 plays, and then you would lose all if it had fidelity to begin with.
What played it back?
Pardon?
What played this?
Well, it was the same way it was recorded. You would literally have a Victrola like speaker, and those work two ways. They can transmit sound out, and you can get, this is a miniature speaker that I'm talking on. You could actually take that speaker and use it as a microphone if you wired it backwards, okay? So what they would do, they would shout into a big cone, and that would then go down, sort of like the inside of your ear gets more narrow as it goes, and amplifies the sound, and it begins to vibrate the lathe that's cutting. And so it's just think crickets. That's what it is. Okay, now at the very same time, ironically, within a few years, we'll pass this around. This is a spool of wire, and this was the, there was actually a patent, I couldn't find it, that dates prior to Edison. But if you guys are real careful, I'll pass this around. Heidi says it's thicker than a human hair. I'll let you judge.
We pulled the hair out of my head to check. So, yeah, this is a leader, right? Right here.
That's the leader,
And
yeah.
this is tape that, or wire that's been recorded on. So
And if
just-
it ever gets tangled,
Yeah, so
forget
don't drop it. Okay,
Just-
I can show it. Yeah.
so a fellow named Valdemar Poulsen, who's Danish,
Sure. That's just a leader that
holds,
allows you.
held the patent for it. It was designed to take dictation.
What metal?
It's steel, stainless steel, yeah. And
You've seen this over.
so it never really caught on. Edison sort of beat him to it, and it sort of was used, of course, by lawyers to, so their secretaries could take dictation. The Germans, beginning in the 30s, really jumped on it because they could use it to spy on people. And they could also use it to make recordings that were very high fidelity, and they would send copies of the recording to different radio stations all around Germany. And the German people were just really amazed that Hitler could be in so many places so many times. And so, and then when World War II came along, and Wick Prout, back to Wick, he went off to war. And when he came back, he was real interested. I still haven't found out exactly why Wick took upon himself. I mean, he did an incredible job for the county. I've got recordings of Senator Wayne Morse when he was a junior senator and when he was the senior senator. And he was talking about the dams on the Snake River and how they should be a public trust and not a private corporation. And was warning, he had a huge meeting here about 1952 or 53 here in the county. So, again, this is all cricket, everything you've, 78, that's a 78 by the way. And then it was superseded by this. You can pass this around. That's one of the first mono LPs, 33 1/3. And it was amazing because the most you could get on a 78 on one side was 4 or 5 minutes, unless you had a giant disc. And so a
45's got in there too.
Oh, 45s, that was the teenagers. It was much more portable. And speaking of teenagers, we have cassettes, little audio cassettes. They first came out and they were expensive. They couldn't compete against long play records when they first came out. And you'll see it in there. But because teenagers thought it was cool that you could have a whole album right like that. And so they supplanted the LPs for a while. And then, of course, the whole thing came to a screeching halt when they invented the optical recording disc, or we call it a CD. And that made LPs obsolete for the most part. Now they're coming back. So, but the first thing I want to talk about is you can have a recording of 78, and you guys know the song called Wallowa Love? I think the guy's name was what, Eugene Bennett?
Yep.
Wrote the poem. He was in jail. He denied that he was a wobbly. I think he really was a wobbly. And so he had had some kind of a trip with his wife here and fell in love with the place. I don't think he ever came back, to my knowledge. But he wrote a love poem. It's called Wallowa Love. So here is his voice as it was recorded in 1931. He paid somebody in Chicago to play piano and sing, and he got somebody else to add the music to his poem.
This was a 78.
Yeah, 78, just like that first one. Tell me if it's too loud.
This is Eugene Barnett, author of Wallowa Love, speaking. Wallowa is an Indian word designating the tripods with which the Nez Perce Indians anchor their fish traps to the river's bank. Wallowa Lake, river, and county in Oregon derive their names from these tripods which line the river bank. Wallowa Love was written by me to my wife as a tribute to her love, which is even more steadfast than Wallowa. My good friend George Clark, famous radio tenor of Chicago, will now sing for you Wallowa Love.
Here in a second, I'm going to switch to another track. The autumn morning shining all along the line. that's what's really on
Well, the mighty crags are towering like rock steeples on the hill. While a man and a maiden flight their throb of love. Says the man, I will love you with a love that's pure and true. You're the only girl in all this world for me. I could never love another in the same way I love you. Oh, darling, say my all you'll ever be. Then the maidens rose and flew with a happy little sigh, and rest her head upon his healing breast, saying, "Sure, sweetheart, I love you, and I'm yours until I die." Just as true, dear, as Wallowas in the West.
So you can really hear a difference. Now, that couldn't have, what I just did, couldn't have been done 20 or 30 years ago, or recently, more recent than that. And that was done with great big thanks to a couple of grad students at MIT, okay? They were studying artificial intelligence. And they got together with a couple of students from Berklee College of Music and decided to reinvent how we record and how we shape sound. And one of the things they came up with was a thing called RX11, which is a way to do forensic work on audio. And so what I did was I took that first recording you heard, and it was terrible. I mean, that record had been played a whole bunch. And back in 1931, the needle probably was, I'm telling you the truth, I think it was a cactus thorn instead of a piece of metal. But eventually metal won out. But a cactus thorn could only be used 15, 20, 30 plays, and then you have to put another one in its place. So what I was able to do was, using artificial intelligence, I could separate the clicks and the noise and the crackle. There was a couple of things I couldn't get rid of, where the record itself was cracked and broken right there where he was talking at the beginning. You heard those big thumps. If I'd taken them out, you would have missed part of his voice altogether. But, and I use it all the time. It's, I only have one good ear left. So I use artificial intelligence to tell me if I'm in the ballpark on things. So, but anyway, now let's cut to the chase here. Oh, what was that?
Champagne. Sounds like champagne.
Yeah, now I'm awake. So,
Truthfulness, not just made up tale and lore, some Hollywood writers, conjure, saga of before.
so that wasn't me that made that sound.
Will you knock it off? Thank you.
Golly. Yeah. Okay, I was was afraid I'd touch something over here. Made that noise. So, we all know who Dave Tucker was. Have you never heard of Dave Tucker? Well, you're going to hear his voice here in a minute, thanks to Whit Proud. But a fellow named Gary Eller put together a really nice book of songs and poems about the Snake River area, of which we are a part. And so I'm going to play a recording. It's right here.
So when he learned to stick at men on the run and laying low, along with a Joseph bar owner, were, hi, this is Tom Swearingen with a love story you can take to the bank. You've no doubt heard some stories of the wild and woolly West and wondered if they could be true, if they could pass the test of actual factual truthfulness, not just made up tale and lore some Hollywood writers conjured saga of before. But not this story that I'm telling. No, folks, I'll be frank, the details actually happened. You can take that to the bank. Which is not coincidentally where this all takes place. A story of love and bad decision, and then recovering from disgrace. First, Bank of Joseph, Oregon, 1896, the history shows, was held up by some outlaws and a local wanting to propose. Young Dave Tucker was a cowboy and his wages kept him poor. He couldn't see his way to marrying until he had much more. His sweetheart's name was Minnie, and he so wanted her hand. But his meager cowhand savings would barely buy a band. So when he learned to stick at men on the run and laying low, along with a Joseph bar owner, were planning to undergo a bank heist in that little town, Tucker thought that'd be the way he could fatten up his bankroll and sweep Minnie away. So against his better judgment, love clouding his moral compass, he threw in with the outlaws and became part of the rumpus. With the barkeep standing lookout, the others rode up to the bank, tied their horses, drew their guns, went in with Tucker watching flank. Stick 'em up and leveled shotgun got the bank man's attention. They took to cleaning out the place when a bystander's alarm caused intervention, which soon led to an army of armed locals in pursuit, bullets flying, one robber dying, another escaping with the loot. And our man David Tucker hit with buckshot in his side and a bullet that took 2 fingers. But more than that, his pride. All of Joseph knew Dave Tucker. They were shocked at his mistake, getting caught up in this bank heist, his future now at stake. Sentenced to 6 years in the Oregon State Pen, he used the time to contemplate and plan for the day when he'd get out and start to working on rebuilding his broken life and his dream of someday, if he deserved her, take Minnie for his wife. His sentence shortened for good behavior. He set out to mend his harm, moved back into Joseph, and with hard work bought a farm. In time, he built some savings and won back the town's favor, plus the hand of his sweet Minnie. By all accounts, was a fine neighbor. Now, the story could just end here with them living out their life, a hard-working, honest stockman and his faithful, trusting wife. But there's a better ending and a real heartwarming turn about character and kindness and other lessons we can learn. Fast forward to 1928, 32 years post Dave's fall, he invested in First National of Joseph, successor bank of his armed withdrawal. So complete was his redemption, so much trust he had re-earned, he was elected vice president, and no one was concerned.
You used a phrase in there that we never used until we had cassette tapes and so on. Fast forward.
Fast forward, that's true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Craig. Did you understand what Craig was saying? That it was, see, for example, with a wire recording, you can't fast forward. With a lift the needle and move it around, you're going to scratch the record. But with a cassette tape, you could go fast forward or fast back. And a reel to reel is the same. So, now I have someone here who may know whether the story is, the poet told, is accurate to history.
I don't know,
Darlene?
I wasn't there.
Oh, should I enter the mic?
Sure.
Um,
Why don't you take it?
Am I talking on the mic? I don't want to trip over it, I'll land in your lap.
I thought I was just coming to learn something.
Oh, come on, you've come to tell us something, please.
Is it
Well, I really don't know too much about it, but I've read a lot of different stories. And they're all a little bit different, but I think the moral of the story is that it did all happen, and 32 years later, came back to be the vice president of the
Yeah.
bank. So, and I think he did well.
Is your grandfather?
Was he a
That's
good
my
grandpa?
My grandfather, and I did know him. I think he lived with us from about 1949 to 53.
Can you call back and?
So I didn't know who he was.
Okay, good. Well, you folks
And
are
I
gonna
do
get to
have-
know
I have a
Dave Tucker
picture.
here in 1 second. Go ahead, darling.
I have a picture here of the house that he and his family lived on, or had on Tucker Dam Road. So I'll just pass it around, kind of get a feel of
So
what's
that's
real.
Tucker Dam?
Yes, Roger.
And the relation to Harley Tucker?
Of course, that's his son.
Okay, so that.
Yeah,
from
and to
whence the
carry the story
Chief
forward.
Joseph days.
Harley was one of the people instrumental in getting Chief Joseph Days started. So. Now, don't forget, I've got a mic up here. We can pass it around. Brad, didn't see you sneak in. So. Let's see if I can get back over.
I thought Jim Blakely and that old man Legore up there was about the same age. You know, Jim Blakely was a fine roper. I'll say that. One of the fine ropers I ever saw. Riding around on a horse. Yes, sir. Just to get on the horse and rope a calf or a steer or anything. He's about as good as I ever saw, if not the best. But I never thought that he was 100 years old. I think he will be, but this Chief Joseph, 99. Do you believe he's that old, Andy? I don't know. How old?
I've heard a lot of questions about that. I just wondered myself, of course, I'm just a newcomer, I don't know. You know how old Legore was?
Yes, he was 90, past 93 when he died.
Okay, that was a recording from February 1953, some short months before Dave Tucker passed away. So, you know, it's one thing to have a poem about him, but it's another to be able to hear his voice. Is that a voice you remember?
Yeah, kind of. But he died in January of 53, so
Okay.
that must have been just before that.
Okay, well, I was only going with what was written down on the thing. It said February 53, so this was pretty darn close, I would say. Yeah, so there was a lot of background noise in there. You might not have picked up on it.
Was
But
that Rick Kraut talking?
yep, that was Wick talking. Wick was the one interviewing. Let's move forward.
And it was recorded on.
I know he's
Old Joe, you mean?
Yeah, but just want to come right down to the point there, nobody, even his own relatives didn't seem to know how old.
I knew him a long, long time. Well, I'll tell you, I always thought that he and Jim Blakely was about the same age.
But the way it kind of turned out there, I suppose we all heard the same thing, nobody really seemed to know how old Joe really was. I heard that argument.
Well, he was a pretty old man.
Did any cassette work when he was pretty old, Dave? Up on the mountain?
I didn't know God, I've known him. His brother's one that killed old man Bennett up there, you know, go south of, Elgin out there.
But anyway,
Where did Wick work? Did he work for the school?
No, he worked for, Standard, or was it one of the oil companies. In fact, it was right up the road here, right around here.
I believe that's what you told me yesterday.
So this was all his, he
It was
wasn't
just
getting
something he
paid for
wanted
any
to
of
do.
this?
He was quite a historian, actually.
Okay.
He has probably the first scrapbook that the Joseph Chamber of Commerce has.
Okay.
And we still have it. I mean, the family still has it.
And what was the sorority that you were a member of? Who?
Our sorority, Beta Sigma Phi, was just a group in in Wallowa County. And he was wanting to do more of interviewing and everything, and so our sorority gave him some money to buy the cassette tapes, so they'd have more tapes, so he'd interview more people.
So I've got
And that
all
was
of his.
probably in the 50s or probably in the 60s,
Yeah.
65.
So one day, some 7 or 8 years ago, the gentleman showed up from Pendleton and said, I've got some recordings that you might be interested in, and I've got to figure out who that fellow was. I think he was kin to Wick, but I've not been able to take my
Could have been
notes.
Gary Proud.
Might have been.
It was.
Oh,
Oh, it was.
Rich
Yeah, I'm
confirms that.
pretty sure.
Gary Proud.
Didn't he came back and lived here for a while, didn't he, Darlene?
Not that I know of.
In the summer?
Well, he works still, he helps a lot down at the rodeo grounds. He and his
Okay.
brother have done a lot of the maintenance at
Okay.
the rodeo grounds.
Very
But
good.
he lives in Pendleton.
Heidi.
Did we was that a wire recording or a reel-to-reel?
That was actually a reel-to-reel. As soon as he could get his hands on this, pass this around.
Did he make any wire recordings?
Oh, yeah. No, I have, one of the recordings of Dave, I think, is wire, and the other is done on reel-to-reel, Mylar tape. And
So do you have two tapes of him?
I think if I look closely, somewhere in there, but we'll see.
Okay. I think you
Some of
gave
these
me
things
one.
aren't dated
You
too
gave
well.
me one of them.
I'm sorry?
You gave me one.
Yeah. And what I gave you is this, and it was done on a reel-to-reel Wallenstock tape recorder. Yes?
Was there 3 voices in that recording? I heard
Yeah, there was somebody else in the room.
Andy, somebody named Andy.
Andy, and anybody know who Andy would have been? They were both about the same age, and they were recounting, I didn't want to get too into homicides here, but there was somebody had a grudge against somebody else, and they bushwhacked them down around Elgin somewhere.
So you cleaned it up with that RX-11?
Yeah,
program?
yeah. Now, that was a pretty good recording to begin with. It just had what was called early reflection, like if you're in an echoey room, and it took some of it out.
Do you have a list of all the people that Wick recorded?
I have a list of all, I guess it was Gary. I've got like 3 pages on a yellow notepad, and everything corresponds, but it doesn't really tell me much information.
Well, he did famously Walter Brennan.
I would love to find that. It's somewhere in there. I've not listened to all the tapes. There's like a good-
Darlene, that Walter Brennan one was at the Joseph Library at one time, I think, in
Really?
cassette.
Well, the library I thought they had all of these at one
Well,
time.
they had a bunch.
Well, see, that's the thing. As technology moved forward, so did Wick. You know, he started with the wire recorder, went to a reel-to-reel, and then went to a cassette recorder. So he kept up with the times. And the irony for me, okay, this is what I love, is Wick was born, I think, 1910, and my dad was born in 1908. And when I was 4 years old, right after the war, my dad had the very same wire recorder that Wick had. There was only really one company, Webster Chicago, making them. And he taught me how to wire it up, make a recording of myself saying my prayers. Now I lay me down to sleep. And I still have a recording somewhere in the basement of me when I was 4 years old. So, and then as soon as wire recorders were replaced by Ampex, the first company that came out with reel-to-reel, that's what my dad bought, was a Wallensack. And so I feel a great kinship to Wick. I really wished I could have met him. So let's move on. Any questions real quick?
I just wondered,
Yes.
of all the technologies, what do you think will last the longest?
Oh, gosh.
Because we've got digital, we've got,
Oh, yeah.
Stone carvings.
Don't laugh. Don't laugh. No, that's, durability is a problem they're still struggling with, because DVDs and CDs do not last forever. They can, if they're put in the wrong environment, they lose their information. So, I don't know, go ahead.
Haven't they already been supplanted by digital formats, MP3, MP4?
Oh, you're gonna get me going on MP3s. Okay, you have an issue of either compressed files, or what are called, those are called lossy, or lossless files. A WAV file has not been compressed. It's very dense. It's 10 megs a minute for, 10 megs a minute for mono. That would be 20 megs a minute for a stereo track. And you can take something that's usually 60, 70, 80, or 90 megabytes and compress it down to something that's only 2 or 3 megabytes or so. And think of it, you've got a piece of paper in front of you with paragraphs and words, and every third or fourth word is missing. So that's the way an MP3 is. Your brain has to sort of fill in the gaps, and it will wear your head out. If you have to listen to an MP3 all day long, I mean, there are recording engineers that refuse to listen to MP3s for that reason. You have to work hard with your brain. But no, to answer your question, data storage is, it's, even though we think of it as solid and timeless, it's very liable to be destroyed. And who knows? I wish somebody could come up with something that was, would last forever. That'd be, like Craig said, chisel it into stone. So, well, let's move forward here for a bit.
It's interesting that ballpoint pen fades, pencil stays.
That's true. And somebody just found an inkwell that dates to, I think, the 1st century in Spain. It was part of a military fort, and whoever was keeping records, and it had some ink remnants in the bottom of it. I just read this the other day. And they analyzed it, and it was the most sophisticated ink you can imagine. Stuff that wasn't invented for another 400 or 500 years in terms of ink technology. So, okay. Now, this is going to be fun. Does anybody know who Bill and Bev were? They must have been friends with Wick. because he recorded them a bunch. But this is only Bill, and he was quite a singer. I'll start with the original recording.
I'll give you a little bit of love, hit loose. Okay, how that? I got a feeling that I'm blue. No, that's too high. I got a feeling that I'm blue, Lord, since my baby said goodbye. I don't know what to do. All to do is sit and sigh.
Now I'm going to switch over.
That last thought, she said goodbye.
Here,
Oh,
cleaned it
Lord,
up.
I thought I would cry. She do me, she do you, she got that kind of love. And Lord, I love to hear her when she calls me sweet and daddy. Such a beautiful thing. Got to think it all over. I lost my heart, it seems. I've grown so used to you somehow that I'm nobody's sugar daddy now. I'm so lonesome. I got the love sick blues. I'm in love with the beautiful gal. That's what's the matter with me. I'm in love with the beautiful gal, but she doesn't care about me. I tried and I tried to keep her satisfied, but she wouldn't stay. That she wouldn't even
That's the original. And this is the one I cleaned up.
I got a feeling that I'm blue, Lord, since my baby said goodbye. I don't know what to do. All I do is sit and sigh. That last all day she said goodbye.
So I'm going to make these available to Josephy so that you can post them the entire. Because I just looked at the clock. We're down to 15 minutes. And one of the most important things I wanted to share with you was this next thing.
Prayer on a Saturday night. We're trying not to look up too much. We want to see over the sides of this tank lighter, but we may not be able to catch too much because we've seen stuff dropping in the water around us already. Boys have now put on their rifles again and they're carbing and are getting ready for the moment when we will hit the reef. There are lots of amphibious tractors, brown ones, bobbing around us now, men transferring over. You can hear the engine of this boat, and I don't know what else, perhaps the rock.
Okay, that was Alvin Josephy. Okay? And that was not the way he spoke normally. The voice being high-pitched. I have other examples of him talking, and he's much lower than my voice. So that was probably improperly transcribed, the recording. And the machine that copied it ran it faster. So
Was that the landing at Eugene?
that, no, actually Guam.
Guam, okay.
Yeah. What was that, July 1944?
Was it 45? You'll notice that he still has his New York accent there, which he, by the time we all knew him, he pretty well got rid of. But in in the 40s, he still had that New York accent.
Yeah.
But that was recorded. He started in the ship the night before. And interesting, he asked the people, "You got a girl back home? What's her name?" And that was the conversation again. And then the next day, they get out and they go over the side and they get in these half tracks and they go to within about a half mile of shore, and then they get out and walk. In that last quarter or half mile, he had the recorder, which I think now was actually a movie recorder with the sound thing on the 16 millimeter film.
Yeah, if you look at a 16 millimeter film, there's a little strip along one side that is actually a little squiggly line. And there's a light that shines through and a sensor that translates that. That was really sophisticated for the day.
Yeah.
And somebody else had to carry it on their back,
Well,
right?
and that was in the belly of the half-track when they got out to walk that last quarter mile. And out of, I think there were 32 on that boat, and 20 of them got hit by the time they got into shore. And he's just, bullets are flying all around him. And he played that for us up at Fish Trap one time, and that's the only time I saw a man cry.
Yeah.
Wow. Craig?
My suspicion actually is that there wasn't anything wrong with the recording. When you're under stress,
Yeah.
your voice tightens up.
Yeah.
That could be the
You
case.
know,
Yeah.
just- I've heard that before, fighting fires.
Yeah.
Had a couple guys go into a place, and all of a sudden the fire was coming to them, and we were listening to them, and they suddenly sounded like schoolgirls.
So
They
for
were,
you,
you know,
yeah, what Craig was saying is true. When we're under stress, our voice rises.
That whole recording was 90 minutes, and it was edited down to 15 minutes and played on all the radio stations in America.
And it was the very first recording of a Marine landing.
It's the only ship-to-shore landing in World War II
Yeah.
recording.
Yeah. He was an amazing person. Okay. Decided I'd mess with it a little bit, so.
Couple of artillery in the background. Some of the fellows are beginning to sing here. Once in a while.
So there was some hiss and some rumble recording.
I'm going to be down on the deck of this half-track, of this tank liner that is, and follow it in. I'm going to walk out of the tank liner as soon as we hit the lip of the reef with the other men, following the half-track, which will be pulling the trail up.
So that was what Rich was describing to you.
He had a 40-foot cord and a microphone covered with a condom. That was his technology.
And so,
because that's going to affect the sound.
that might have been, yeah. Okay,
We'll be walking behind it and at the sides of it, and some of the men in front.
so I lowered the
Just
pitch
along
a little bit here.
the half-track out of any potholes that are in the meat. We can hear yourself whistling now. I don't know whether it's that stuff coming near us or what. Terrific weather around us is coming from, mostly from our own amphibious Texas. There go American dive bombers going down on the beach, back of the beach. We can see.
So here is where it started.
See the beach very clearly now. The coconut trees along the beach are shattered, looking like burnt toast.
And then here
I
is,
was Craig. I think that's the stress.
Yeah.
you think so?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll back it up. I do.
Yeah.
I also wonder if that level of description would tell me that he maybe wasn't doing a video, because he was trying to describe what he's seeing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, it was not video.
Yeah.
The recorder used that 16mm tape, but it was all the only audio.
Audio.
Yeah, he didn't, no,
That's
there
what
was
I
no.
thought, yeah.
But somebody had to carry it.
No, it was in the belly of the half-track,
Yeah. So,
and I think there was a technician with it. I imagine they had to get out of the half-track just because the weight of it, as they got close to shore, it would have bogged down.
yeah.
And then he said they had boats that they pulled, so when somebody gets shot, they load them in a raft or something and pull them to shore. It was
It's tough. It really was. So, speaking of tough, how many of you ever had a chance to meet Gene Hayes? Okay, you know, I think he lost his right hand in a milling accident. He had to learn how to become an artist again with his left hand. And he was born and raised on, what, Bear Creek?
sounds right.
Yeah. And he wasn't a terribly tall person. Oh, before we forget, Heidi's back there in the back, and somebody you're gonna hear at the very end here, one more recording, is Adeline or Addie Marks. Does anybody know Addie? She's setting a record. She'll be 104 on December 7th. So Heidi's got a card to pass around, so let's all wish her a happy birthday. She's at the Alpine House. The main thing we're gonna be doing is collecting people who served in the military or who lived in Wallowa.
Spokane for the induction center. And a week or two later, back over to Fort Douglas, Utah, to the.
So this was a modern recording using my H6. I didn't have to do anything to clean it up. And Gene carried what was called a Browning automatic rifle the whole way. He was the point man for his platoon. And my memory says he was not a terribly tall person. And that BAR is like, weighs a ton. He said he threw away the tripod early on and just carried it. And somehow survived through the jungles and everything. Did you know him? You have anything you'd like to share? Well, he was someone who was quite extraordinary. I mean, most people, if they'd lost their right hand and had been an artist, they'd just sort of go do something else. But he went back and...
Well, he lived for a while up at Maxville, because he recreated a map of Maxville for the museum.
From memory?
From memory.
Wow.
That they then went ahead and did archaeological, the survey and everything, and pretty much, matched his memory of everything. You can see it in the museum.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So, yes, I know. It's time, Bob. Let's take a listen very quickly to Addie. And you have to understand, Ted Hayes and Ella Mae, Addie's daughter, and I went to see her, I guess it was 2 years ago. And she was telling Ted and Ella Mae things they couldn't remember. And all the way back to her childhood when she was 4. And she kept us going there for almost 2 hours of recording. So this is just to give you a taste.
Grandma's sister.
Yeah.
But my mom's sister, Ethel,
That's Ella Mae.
Warren and Ethel Holman. Anyway, Ethel was married to Warren Holman, who was Ida's.
So as soon as I started recording, they started talking. And I hadn't really told them that we were really recording.
You wanted to find out about your great-grandma.
Yes. I'd like you to talk about your grandparents.
Well, I only knew one set of grandparents. I never, my mother's family was in Illinois. I never knew anything about them except correspondence between Mama and her mother and sisters and brothers. And all my dad's family lived around Waitsburg and Prescott, Washington. And so each summer my granddad would come, lots of times my grandmother wouldn't come, but he would come and spend maybe a couple of weeks with us when we were on Alder Slope. And so that's how come I got to know her, or him. And he would come different summers. And then that's about all I knew of the grandparents, was when he came and we knew her. I remember when he died, and I remember going to my dad, when my dad died. I can remember going to the funeral, just a little bit. I can remember the cemetery.
So, our son Alan, when he was about a senior in high school, his senior pictures, if you put a picture of my mother's mother, my grandmother, next to Alan's picture,
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be too hard, we got almost 2 hours of tape here. So it's all gonna get posted. The family's gonna give permission for us to post it, I think through, do you know Sadie Kennedy at the Wallowa Historical? She has an interest in wanting to see these things get posted. And I think it's all gonna be shared with the museum here and hopefully with you folks here at Josephy, so you could.
The plan is to get it online.
Pardon?
The plan is to get it, once it's digital, is to get it online.
Yes, definitely. And now we have, because of artificial intelligence, we have speech to text abilities that don't cost a fortune, so that you can make a searchable document so that you don't have to listen to 2 hours to find out one little bit of information. And you go right to it. Yes?
So, how do we ourselves preserve the cassette tapes that we have of grandmother, or how do we do that?
Shameless commercial here. Come see me, I'll be glad. I've started, expanded my recording studio.
So, what is it going to be on? What's
Well,
this?
it could be on any number of different formats. I could give it to you on a CD. I could put it on a DVD as a data disc. A CD is an audio disc. I could also put it on a thumb drive, either a USB-C or a USB 2 thumb drive, and that you could then plug into your computer or your laptop. Oh yeah, and then also I have a personal Dropbox service called Hightail, and I can post it up there, and you can then download it at your leisure from the Dropbox. So
Can you also do video?
I'm working on that part. I have invested in a really high-quality video player that has I think they call it a chip. I'm not sure. It's got a component that allows you to work with a capture card and get the highest quality. I can work with VHS. I'm going to, in the near future, be able to take, there was a video format called High 8 or Super 8 back in the 90s. I'm going to get one of those machines, and I can transcribe from that as well.
So Bob, I think it'd be really worthwhile to check with the Joseph Library to fill out the whole Wick Proud thing.
Definitely.
Because I think Darlene's right. As I recall, and
Yeah, she had to leave. She had a doctor's appointment.
Oh, well, it was 20 or 25 years ago that I saw those recordings.
If they're there. And by the same token, Fish Trap sitting on of wealth recordings.
Yeah.
And those tapes began to deteriorate. You saw the tape that was being passed around. The very first reel-to-reel tapes in the 50s were made like tanks. They were really good, and they held up. As they wanted to make more time on a reel, they would make the mylar thinner. And one side, if you ever look at, or perhaps if you had looked at that tape, one side was shiny, one side was dull. And the dull side was a coating of iron oxide. And that deteriorates over time. Back to what you were talking about.
I'd just like to let you know that I had a recording that was made in 1956 in Eastern Germany, and it was some uncle of a cousin or something. And we ran it, we digitized it already now 15 years ago, and it was flaking off as it went around. There were little crumbs going up in the air. So in 1956, you know, that was a long time ago, so it only really had one play left in it. But the little cassettes that you got, depending on the quality of the company that you bought, you know, if you bought a real good Memorex or if you bought some off-brand, the cassettes don't last all that long. And I don't know about you, but I've got some boxes of cassettes, including where we stuck the recorder under the table at Thanksgiving just to get everybody at the family, you know. So it's a matter of if you want to keep those, they can be preserved.
Was that for blackmail?
So did you get the cranky uncle?
Yes.
The one that you wish you didn't have to invite? So that's it. Anybody have any
Thank you
questions?
very
I'll
much,
stick
Bob.
around.